Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a great Christmas Eve. So, some interesting news today, and an interesting turn of events, especially when we consider this debate of the Superman trunks, the red trunks, and the Superman suit overall. Uh, we find it interesting that there was this consultation between the Superman director James Gunn and Zack Snyder, right? And so that's kind of interesting because that's kind of unexpected. Like, why would James Gunn be talking to Zack Snyder? Especially, it's kind of strange in a way because I'm thinking, especially seeing that the entire reason that James Gunn was seen was hired was to kind of take the Superman franchise in a totally different area. And it's just interesting that he would be consulting with Zack Snyder. But as we read along here and find out from this article at CBR what happened, it shed some light on the dilemma it seems like Mr. James Gunn was having about the suit, right? So let's just start it off because some of this we are aware of with David Cornsweat's position on the trunks, but uh, David Cornsweat's Man of Steel embraces his red trunks in Superman, the upcoming film by writer-director James Gunn. During the movie's early stages of production, however, there was serious consideration given by Gunn to keeping the red trunks off of the colorful superhero. So James Gunn didn't want to do the red trunks. That's kind of interesting because then what that means is that does kind of give us this depiction of maybe a closer to Zack Snyder Superman suit, right? Where you kind of just get this bodysuit without the trunks or something interesting. Again, which I did like the Zack Snyder suit. I just thought it was a bit too dark, right? While speaking about the recent Superman trailer in a screen brief interview, Gunn shed some more light on the decision to give Cornsweat's version of the superhero the classic red trunks. Gunn recalled designing a new suit, which came with comparing different versions of the look with and without the added garment below his belt. Remembering how Zack Snyder ultimately chose to abandon the trunks for Henry Cavill's Superman and Man of Steel, Gunn even consulted with the fellow Superman director about why he came to that decision, right? And it was coming together, but it had the red trunks. It had the whole thing, Gunn said. And we really went back and forth a lot about the red trunks. I even talked to Zack Snyder about it. He said, I tried like a billion versions with the trunks and just never got there. And I said, I see how that's the case. So this is all very interesting because it just shows you how difficult it is to make a Superman suit work, especially with the actor and so on, right? And so I do got to give it to Zack Snyder, that Superman suit without the trunks, because it's really the first version of a Superman suit we see without the trunks. I thought it worked very well, right? And I don't know who the costume designer was, but they seemingly got it right. I remember when that suit when they first show pictures of that Zack Snyder suit, it had kind of like they were complaining about just to let y'all know that even with that suit, everything wasn't peaches and cream. Some of you probably remember this. Remember like the pattern design on the side of the Zack Snyder suit, right? And I wish I could pull up a picture real quick. It should actually be on the thumbnail. But there was like this, on the side of his waist, it was like these wing things coming out, right? And I remember people going, "Whoa, that's a weird design to put on a Superman suit with that kind of like button thing in the front." And looking at it, later on during the movie, it didn't bother me at all. I actually thought it looked pretty good. But prior to that, when we weren't sure exactly, because you know how it is. You never really get a clear look at the suit, even with the trailers and stuff like that. We were very concerned about those added designs and ornaments, right? That we had never seen on a Superman suit before, right? And so that ended up, working out well again. I just thought the suit was too dark. As I had said before, the Christopher Nolan Batman films were big and everybody wanted to be Batman, right? But I just thought that had no place for Superman, right? But here's the other thing. David Cornsweet really seems like he fought to wear. And I find that very interesting because remember as an actor, right? Even if you look at Tom Welling's, his long 10 years in the Smallville series, where in the finale, we never get to see him up close with the Superman suit. They kind of do the pan out, and that's probably CGI. And they do that pan out. He's over the planet, right? Or he does the thing, he's unbuttoning the shirt. That's probably CGI as well. I don't think he put on any Superman suit, right? But the reason that's all kind of interesting is because actors usually are very particular about suits they wear, superhero suits. They don't want to look ridiculous. They want to look good. They don't want to get, typecasted, kind of like what happened to Christopher Reeves and such. And so they're very particular about, even if they want to wear like Superman, of course, you're in the Superman movie, you got to wear the Superman suit. But I would believe even more so they want to look good in this suit, right? So the thing about David Cornsweet really going to bat for the big red trunks and all that stuff that I'm finding is that he felt comfortable wearing that. And that's very important to actors, right? You also want the actors to embody because even though I know it's up to production, it's up to, the studio heads and such, the directors and whatnot, to really decide. But I can see why James Gunn would go to David Cornsweet and be like, hey, what do you think? Are you okay with this? Because they actually got to wear these suits, right? And so if David Cornsweet fought hard to be able to wear that suit and have those red trunks, and when he seen the finished product, he wasn't like, oh man, these aren't too baggy, they're too big, and he was fine embodying that. I'm confident things are going to turn out okay, because what it's telling me is that he's taking this, not only is he taking the role very seriously, like most people who play Superman do. The great thing about all the actors, every one of them that's played Superman, is their character is pretty darn close to what or they got like some of the best human traits that you'll want in a portrayal of Superman, right? On camera, off camera. Most people who portray Superman have been pretty darn good people, right? And so for David Cornsweet to fight hard to have this included, it's when he embodies this, when he puts the suit on, he becomes Superman. He's gonna have the confidence in that, and so I think that's very important that the actor be considered his wishes as well. They're going to be wearing the suit, they're going to embody that character, and so on, right? But looking at, you guys kind of see to the right of James Gunn's head, you see how that suit looks with that belt across. Now, that is more or less the look I thought would have looked, good without trunks, right? Or those are trunks, but they're kind of small trunks, right? Obviously they're not the bright red trunks. So that's another direction you could go in, not make the trunks red and have that belt. But this movie looks great. A lot of people are talking about the color palette of what this film looks like. I think it looks awesome. And it's beautiful. It looks like a comic book, but the thing is, whereas I've been kind of anti, I've always been the guy who wanted the very realistic translation of comic book movies, right? But this is something different. This feels, not only does it feel different, but maybe it's just reaching a place where a Superman movie can work, right? Maybe a Superman movie, maybe that's what we've been missing. maybe, and maybe that's what like the Christopher Reeve films got right. Maybe you don't want to, you want moderation with it. You don't want to go too far left or right with that. Or you do want to keep it in the realm of comic books when you're dealing with a character like Superman. You know what I mean? And have it look like that, but then have those human characteristics that resonate with your audience, right? So that's all very interesting that James Gunn did show Zack Snyder the respect to give him a call and say, hey, what do you think to include him in? I thought that was very cool of James Gunn to, to include him and and let him know that, hey, I'm just a director like you. I could use a little bit of help too. Some of the things you did with the Superman, Man of Steel was great, which I, just because I saw many issues with, and I said it in my earlier Man of Steel reviews, when it was coming out first, and I did reviews on it, and I was saying that this is a good movie. But this isn't a Superman movie, right? At the time they were, you had the Kryptonians that were dressed like, at the time, I think Alien Covenant had just come out. Not Alien Covenant, was it Alien Prometheus or something like that? It might have been Alien Prometheus, where you had the engineers, right? And they had this like organic skeletal body armor. And so what do we get? We get in Man of Steel, we get the Kryptonians, and they show up in these very organic looking vessels and this kind of organic looking body armor, right? And so everybody immediately went, oh, this is like a ripoff of Alien Prometheus, right? And so that's how I felt about that Man of Steel movie. I felt it was a good movie, but it wasn't a Superman movie. It was a movie about a superhero alien that wasn't Superman, but it was a good movie, right? And so in that scope, that was the only problem I had. It didn't mean that every element of Man of Steel I didn't think worked in Superman, right? I love the interpretation of the Fortress of Solitude. So I did the cinematography of it rather in this first flight and stuff. I didn't like that it was a ship. Yeah, that was another thing I was kind of a little bit bothered about, because the Fortress of Solitude is so iconic in Superman, right? I just don't feel like you can be authentic to a Superman story without including the Fortress of Solitude. That is so instrumental in the Superman story, right? But it didn't have that. But just because of these things that problems I had with these Zack Snyder Superman films, it didn't mean that there weren't elements in there that weren't relatable to Superman. And so I thought that was cool that James Gunn felt he could come and say, hey, give me some input. What do you think? And Zack Snyder just told him, we just never got there with the trunks, right? And it's just so many complexities in that. But let me just say this last thing before I get out of here about that Superman suit. And that is, if we really look at it, right, of all the superhero suits, was the Superman suit ever the best? Because I didn't ever think that Superman suit was like the best superhero suit. Like, it was like the Superman suit was never first on my list. I would say the Superman suit was one of the most basic, most comic booky suits out there, right? And we had like all processions of some of the coolest looking superhero suits out there, right? After that. The reason I'm saying that is to say this, that the Superman suits, right, priority wise, in my opinion, is never going to be the main priority in a Superman film, right? So I know like a lot of people go, oh, you just got to get the costume right to make this work, right? But the Superman suit was never a big focal point. in superhero films, right? It really wasn't, right? If you really think about it, the Superman suit's always been very basic. I think we more were concerned about the character's look of Superman. And that's one thing I can say good about the Superman franchise so far with the Supermen we've seen, the actors portraying Superman. In most cases, these people look like Superman off the comic books, right? They have a very Superman-like appearance. So we've never had a problem with that. And that, but as far as the Superman suit being, oh, like this, just this coolest, baddest suit, and it's just so important to the character. I think of all the superheroes, the Superman suit has been the less, you know, has character less concern in that department. And I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm right or wrong, because if I'm real honest about it, and the coolest looking Superman suit I've seen, let me see if I can try to find it for you guys. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Okay, guys. So to me, this was the best looking Superman suit. Out of the comics I've seen, right? And that's of course, um, yeah, I'm drawing a blank now. Isn't that Val L, right? Val L. He's like another dimension Superman, right? I don't know a whole lot about him, right? I never got to a storyline. I just remember, um, there was like talks, there was rumors that Michael B. Jordan might play him, right? And I didn't want that to happen, not yet. I want it to happen, but they were almost like uh, making it sound like it was going to happen before these Superman movies took off, before, these, or I guess maybe, was it after the Zack Snyder superhero? It could have been after Zack Snyder's, and they weren't sure what they were going to do with Superman, but they know they was going to do something else. Um, and some people were saying that, they might get some characters of African American descent, origins, like Michael B. Jordan, and I think earlier some people had mentioned Will Smith playing a version of Superman. But my entire thing about um, someone like Val L, they were saying that if he's black, why not make him that? And some people didn't want him to be more of the uh, Superman belonging to our dimension, or the traditional Superman, right? But if if they were going in that direction, right? Uh, I always just liked this Superman suit. I just thought it looked so freaking cool. And but this suit, right, uh, was never really uh, what the traditional Superman, like what we were accustomed to, right? These very interesting aesthetic Superman suits, is something kind of, at least with traditional Superman, is something very new. Um, and you go back, and if you go back to the Brandon Ross Superman, that was a very basic Superman suit. I thought sometimes less is better. I thought that looked good. It was a very simple suit. And this is a little bit more. It has a large crest on it. But I just, so when we're talking about the importance of Superman, suit looking so good and all that, I think of this, is to me, is would be a very nice look. Now, in traditional Superman lore, and so on, that's never been a thing I was concerned about, right? Because I never looked at traditional Superman as wearing a very good looking, interesting suit. As crazy as that sounds to say, but I mean, Superman's suit has always been the basic superhero suit that's kind of been the model for basic superhero suits afterwards, right? So maybe that's why it isn't that huge of a deal to me, right? But to some people it is, right? And especially after the Zack Snyder films, where the Superman suit for the first time, I think, got very complicated. The Superman suit from the Zack Snyder films is closer to this than any other version of superhero costumes have been. right? If you really look at them, right? So all very interesting stuff. That's all I got to say in the video, guys. Let me know your opinions about this consultation, James Gunn and Zack Snyder. You know, if they could get together and talk about it, you know, so can we, and maybe we can, you know, come together on on this maybe this debate with what looks good in this film, in this movie, or if it matters, if we got our priorities straight. And again, to some, it is very important that the suit looks fantastic. So that's all I want to say, guys, in this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified of any of our upcoming updates or to these videos, these Superman videos, the latest news and such, and so on. And until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a happy holiday.